Okay, next we're going to go over how to read a statement of activities or the income statement. And again, we'll use the ARC financial statements, so make sure you have them out. Okay, so first up, we're going to look at revenues and supports. So a couple things to note. We talked about the presentation of this. You're going to see it without donor restrictions and with donor restrictions. That's the revenue that came in this year. And then you'll see a total column. And you can compare the total column from this year to the total column from last year. So some things that I see when I look at this, we're seeing a substantial drop in contributions. That would be a serious question I have. Now this was the coronavirus time, so we need to, take that into account, right? 2020 to 2021. But something happened in this organization. Contributions should not go down, almost $2.7 million without some sort of explanation. We can also see that if we go down to the grants line item, there's a substantial increase. Now, this is so. What happened is this organization got some sort of donor restricted grant that we don't know exactly what it is yet, but things we want to think about, as we go through the rest of the statements is we're going to need to explain that. We're going to need to understand it because 1.774 million to 4.159, that's a huge jump. This organization also has some special categories that help give us some insight into what type of organization it is. So affiliation and chapter fees. The ARC of the United States is, the national organization, and now we can see that it has substantial chapters. And those chapters pay into the ARC of the United States. We don't yet know what kind of services they receive, but in return, but they are chapters and they do pay donor fees, they pay chapter fees. And then there's something odd called contributed services. It's on line 3. That's a really big number, $7.7 million. And we're going to need to understand what that is as we go through, because my guess is that is not a cash number. It's a revenue. It says contributed services. So that usually means that somebody is doing something for us that if we had to pay for it, we would value at $7.7 million. That's a big number in this financial statement. It's almost, it is, 33% of what they're doing. And so we're going to have to explain that as we go forward. The other thing we can see is, program service fees. They don't have a lot of it. So earned revenue is not a huge thing for them. They do have some substantial investments, which we'll want to, understand more. But that's what I can tell from looking at the revenue side. Okay, so now we're going to look at expenses, which is kind of the bottom half of the income statement. It's going to be divided into program services and supporting services. We're going to be able to see the, all of the different line items that they categorize their expenses as for each of those sections. We're also going to see a total for program services and total supporting services. Interestingly, a couple things. $10 million in public policy. So remember how at the top we were talking about they got $7.7 million in contributed services somewhere? Well, there's only one line item that's big enough to include $7.7 million worth of contributed services. So my suspicion is that as we go forward, we will find out that that $7.7 million went into the public policy line item, and that's, what they would have spent it on. We'll see. You can see that they spend a lot on chapter leadership and development, program innovation, which is interesting. We're not sure exactly what that is. You can see the breakdown between management and general versus fundraising for supporting services. You can also see total expenses year over year. And so, total expenses also went up by roughly $3 million, $3.4 million. So we've got revenues going up, we've got expenses going up. That's generally a good thing. We need a little bit more detail, though, to be able to definitively say that, but that's where we are after looking at both revenue and expenses. Okay, so where does all this get us? Well, it gets us to the change in net assets. You can see it presented as, net assets at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, and then the change. So we're not using the term surplus and deficit. We're using the change in net assets. What happened in this organization? Net assets went up. Our question, or the question we're trying to solve is, okay, why did that happen? And is it a good thing? And is it, a good indicator for the organization? Or is it just a one-time thing? We don't necessarily know yet, but what we do know is that they have seen a tremendous loss in contributions. However, they got a tremendous grant. We don't know if this is a one-time grant. We don't know if it is, replicable. So we're going to have to, learn a little bit more about that. But overall, it's not like they lost a ton of money. The net assets did increase. A lot of them are restricted, which is fairly scary. But, at this point, $15 million in 2020, $18 million in 2021, that's generally a good place to be. So how does the statement of income, the statement of activities work with the statement of the financial position? So first off, if you look at the total net assets that are listed for 2021 on the statement of financial position, it's $18,103,368. If you go to the statement of activities, you will see that, lo and behold, the net assets at the end of the year are $18,103,368. So they're tying together, which is a good thing. You can also see that the 2020 numbers tie together. We don't yet have the full picture of what's happening in this organization, but taken together, the two do show us some things, right? So we know that this organization has a lot of assets. What we don't know yet is, a couple mysteries still to be solved. What happened in the sense that they got more cash this year, about $1 million in cash and cash equivalents, and yet they had revenues in the amount of, roughly $5 million that went up. There's a discrepancy there. Maybe it went into investments, which also went up. We need to explain the grants going up substantially. We need to explain the contributions going down. But overall, we're starting to get a better picture of what this organization looks like. And when you're ready, we'll go on and we'll add one more piece to the puzzle, which is the statement of cash flows.